I came home and instantly knew something was wrong. Dust hung in the air. Chunks of concrete were scattered across the floor. There was a massive hole in the wall, like we'd just been robbed. Jessica was sitting on the couch, staring at the floor. What happened? She found it. Hi, I'm Liv. My mom was a rocker to the bone. Leather jackets, floor speakers in the living room that towered over me, and vintage band posters all over the kitchen. And of course, nonstop parties. I grew up in that mayhem and just assumed that's how life was. I didn't remember my dad at all. I only knew him from the stories I made up. And with time, they became my own personal myth. Dad must have been a great man, a hero, someone important. Sure, he was a military pilot, and he died before you were even born. I imagined airplanes, runways, and a man in uniform, someone who could have been my father. Everything fell apart the day the cops showed up at our house. I didn't fully understand what Mom had done, but a couple of days later, I found out they'd sent her to prison. For a long time. It all happened so fast, I barely had time to process that my life would never be the same. I was adopted by my mother's friend Jessica. I'd known her since I was a kid. She was one of the most responsible rockers I knew. She dealt with all the paperwork, took me in, and within a couple of weeks, we moved into this enormous place that looked like it was designed by a hard rock fan with a ton of money. Black walls, neon signs, vinyl records hanging where paintings should be, and a real stage. Life went on. Jessica became my adoptive mom. She woke me up for school, made us breakfast, scolded me over my grades, and watched old music videos with me in the evenings. One day, while we were sitting in the kitchen and eating pizza straight from the box, the topic of my parents came up. Your father was a sailor, but he ran off before you were even born. That made something click in my head. Mom had always told me a different story. She told me that my dad was a military pilot, so one of them had to be lying. From that night on, I couldn't let it go. I replayed the conversation over and over in my head, and bit by bit, my dream of finding my father turned into an obsession. I started rummaging through old boxes, pulling out photo albums and studying the pictures. In them, Mom and Jessica, still young, were going wild at rock festivals. Hands in the air, arms around random musicians and partying people. There were no pilots in those photos, no sailors, no one who looked serious or heroic. I tried to match up dates and places, searching for clues in the details, but every time I hit a dead end. And the more I searched, the more I realized that my father was like a ghost that disappeared in smoke and loud music. While I was rummaging through the past, my life kept going. I grew up. I changed. At some point, the boys at my school started looking at me a little longer than usual. I got obsessed with rock music, the same way Mom and Jessica had. I picked up a guitar and spent hours in my room practicing chords. At school, we put together a band and played at parties and school events. That quickly made me even more popular. I started dating Bruce, the hottest guy at school, and we looked like the kind of stylish couple that belonged on a poster. People whispered about us, stared at us. The whole thing felt like a movie. And then Mom got out of prison. She just showed up on Jessica's doorstep. Same swagger, same cocky grin, the same look in her eyes, like nothing had changed. We hugged, we laughed, and I felt something inside me finally click into place. But almost immediately, a question hung in the air, one nobody asked out loud. Where was I going to live now? That evening, I heard Mom and Jessica tensely whispering to each other in the kitchen, shuffling papers and going quiet every time I got too close. In the morning, they told me the three of us were going to live together. So, I guess I have two moms now. And we really did live like a perfect family. We cooked together, went out together, cleaned, watched movies, and ate popcorn together. It all seemed way too perfect to be real. Sometimes, I'd catch Mom and Jessica looking for something, opening drawers, peeking into the basement, up in the attic. What are you looking for? Old records. Don't worry about it, but I could tell that wasn't the truth. One day, my band performed at a small music festival. That's where I met Will, a guy from another band. After our performances, we got to talking, and it was like we'd known each other forever. At the end of the festival, we exchanged numbers. That night, I texted Will first. We talked about music, our schools, and a bunch of random nonsense. I have two moms. That sounds very 21st century. When he asked me about my dad, I told him honestly that I didn't know anything about him, but wanted to find out. I barely talk to my dad. He's always disappearing somewhere. I caught myself thinking that we had more in common than I expected. The next day, I confronted Mom. Who was my father? Really? You already know, sweetheart. I told you, he was a pilot. But Jessica said he was a sailor and he just ran off. Jessica's wrong, and she has no idea what she's talking about. Mom tried to shut the conversation down, but I wasn't backing off. I kept asking questions until Mom started dodging them and pretending she urgently had to be somewhere else. That's when an idea popped into my head, one that felt absolutely brilliant. I decided to launch a full-on boycott. The whole weekend, I stayed in my room. I stopped cleaning, ignored every chore, and didn't come down for dinner. I made it very clear I didn't care about anything except the truth. What is wrong with you? You're acting like a child. I will keep acting like this until I find out the truth about my father. You are taking this too far. Mom slammed the door and left, and I was alone, feeling like I'd crossed a line. But it was already too late to back down now. On Monday, I ran into Bruce at school.
How was your weekend?
Oh, we absolutely crushed it at the festival. I didn't mention Will, of course, because that would have been way too complicated to explain. Bruce looked pleased and then, out of nowhere, said,
I got us tickets to Rock in Rio, the biggest rock festival in the world.
No way! That's been my dream for ages. I couldn't help myself and hugged him. You're the best boyfriend in the world. But after school, the universe went right back to messing with me because Will was already waiting for me at the gates on his bike.
Hey Liv, wanna go for a ride?
I said yes without hesitation. We rode for a long time until we ended up in a quiet spot overlooking the city. And there, I spilled everything about my dad to Will, about Mom and Jessica and telling me different stories and how it was driving me insane.
I'll try to help you. My dad works in the government. I'll ask him to look into your father. Well, whenever my dad shows up at home anyway.
In that moment, I felt such a wave of relief that I leaned in and kissed Will. Right after that, Will asked me out, and I said yes before I even thought about the consequences. That evening, I walked in on a bizarre scene when I came home. Mom and Jessica were standing in the living room and literally tearing a hole in the wall. What is going on here?
We decided to do some renovations.
It sounded so ridiculous that, for a second, I actually paused to think about it. But then I decided to ignore it, because there was something else on my mind. That night, I lay in bed thinking, I now had 2 boyfriends. But for some reason, the thought didn't feel awful. I was pretty, popular. I felt like the world revolved around me, so why not? With that thought, I drifted off to sleep, having no idea how complicated my life was about to get. The next morning, I could tell something was off again. Mom and Jessica were arguing in the kitchen in hushed voices. What happened? None of your business. At school, Bruce came up to me and asked me out on a date after class. Sure, I'd love to. But just a couple of minutes later, Will called me.
I found out something about your father. Let's meet after school.
I agreed without even thinking, and only later remembered about my date with Bruce. I need to figure something out. After school, I rushed to the cafe where Will was waiting for me. We sat down and he got straight to the point.
Your father was a well-known rock musician, and he died a few years ago. I'm really sorry.
What? That's insane. Thank you, Will. He added that my father had a house in our town and gave me the address. I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. Wait, this is where I live. And then Bruce burst into the cafe. His face was tense and angry.
I was waiting for you, but you were here with some other guy? Who is this? I'm her boyfriend, and who are you supposed to be? Is that true?
I didn't even know what to say. Will stared at me, completely disappointed. He didn't say a word and just left.
I didn't expect this from you. We're done.
Bruce left too, and I was sitting there alone with this awful feeling that I've ruined everything. I felt ashamed and empty, and for the first time in a long while, I realized my life wasn't simple and awesome anymore. The second I stepped home that day, an eerie quiet washed over me. Jessica was sitting on the couch in the living room. Jessica, what happened?
She found it, and she ran away.
Found what? Who ran away?
Your mom, with your father's stash.
At first, I didn't even get what she was saying. But then it clicked. There was a reason the house felt too quiet. I know everything. My dad was a rock musician, and this is his house. Admit it.
Yes, Liv. It's true.
It turned out that my father wasn't some hero. There was nothing noble about him. He was a total womanizer and was dating both my mom and Jessica at the same time. Of course, neither of them knew about each other. They had no clue they were dating the same guy. But when Jessica found out my mom and dad had a baby, she disappeared from dad's life. She couldn't bear it. A few years passed. My father died, and in his will, he left his house to Jessica, as if that could fix anything or make up for what he'd done. And then things got even weirder. When my mom came back from prison, she told Jessica she knew a secret my father had entrusted to her. There was treasure hidden in this house, his savings, the money he made and never had the chance to spend. The problem was, nobody knew where it was hidden. Mom and Jessica tore the place apart looking for that treasure. But before long, the arguments started. They hadn't been friends in a long time, but they kept pretending we were a perfect family for my sake. They didn't want me to have no home again. Today, I came home and saw that hole in the wall. Your mom was just gone. Looks like she found the treasure and ran off with it. No note, no explanation, nothing. I stared at Jessica, trying to process it all. I couldn't believe it. I thought I knew my mom. Yeah, she was complicated, but she was genuine. But now it turned out she could just disappear like that, take the money, and leave us with this mess. That evening, I lay in my room, thinking about everything that had happened over the past few days. The more I replayed it in my head, the more obvious it was. My mom wasn't who I wanted her to be. But what hurt the most wasn't even that. What really got to me was how I treated Bruce and Will. Like I was playing some stupid game without thinking about the consequences. It suddenly hit me that I was just like my father. He dated several women at once and ended up alone. And I realized that if I didn't stop, the story would repeat itself, except I'd be the main character in that tragedy. The next day at school, I found Bruce between classes. Bruce, I was stupid and selfish. I get it now. I really hurt you.
No kidding.
I've changed, and you honestly mean a lot to me. Those weren't just words. I truly meant what I said. Bruce looked at me and gave me that familiar smile of his.
I forgive you. We all do dumb things sometimes.
At that moment, I felt a wave of relief, like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Later, I finally worked up the courage to call Will, even though I knew this conversation was going to be hard. I should have told you that I have a boyfriend from the very beginning. What I did was terrible. I betrayed your trust and hurt your feelings. Will listened in silence, and then said he couldn't forgive me because I was cruel and he didn't want to talk to me anymore. It hurt to hear, but I knew he was right. It was a fair punishment for what I'd done. Back at home, Jessica kept telling me stories about my father. She pulled out old boxes of photos and VHS tapes, put on recordings of his performances, and showed me pictures of him when he was young, bold, reckless, and looking uncannily similar to me. I looked at him and realized I had inherited more than just his looks and his personality. I'd inherited his love for loud music and freedom too. Jessica, how are we supposed to live now? It felt like after everything, nothing would ever be the same again. The same way we always have, Liv. You're my daughter. Adopted, yes, but I love you like you're my own. I hugged her, and for the first time in a long while, I believed things would really be okay. Time went by, and little by little, my life slipped back into its usual rhythm. I was back to my old routine, rehearsing with the band, dating Bruce, and getting ready for our trip to Rock in Rio, the one we've been dreaming about. Will still hadn't forgiven me, and he wouldn't talk to me even though we ran into each other around town a few times. Each time, I wanted to come up to him and say something, but I realized that sometimes the best thing you can do is leave someone alone. I kept hoping that one day he'd forgive me, but it wasn't time yet. And recently, I saw a news report saying my mom had been arrested while trying to sell stolen items, and that she was back behind bars. I watched the report without feeling angry or shocked. I only felt a strange calm because I finally understood that some people truly never change. Not every adult is a hero, and your past might be messed up, but it's not an excuse to act like a jerk. If you don't think about consequences and toy with people's feelings, you can end up alone, no matter how cool or popular you are.